Hi guys! So in honor of World Heart Day, which is just around the corner, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about cholesterol, particularly 3 things that you should know about cholesterol. Now I'm sure you think you already know quite a bit about cholesterol. It is pretty common. We all know that it's not good for us, but there might be some things that you don't know, which I wanted to talk to you today. So one thing that I want you to know is that cholesterol is not found in plants. You know, I've gone to supermarkets and I've seen products like fruit juices and oil and olive oil having cholesterol free on them. And I was surprised because plants do not make the kind of cholesterol that our body takes in the form of cholesterol. So the only source of cholesterol is actually naturally only coming from animal sources. So humans and animals are the only ones who can make cholesterol, and so that means that if you're eating things like olive oil or olives or fruits and nuts and seeds, they do not have the ability to produce cholesterol, so they do not ever have cholesterol in them. So don't get fooled by marketing claims which say that it's cholesterol free. It's always been cholesterol free. So like if you look at this oil here, corn oil, it's corn, it never has cholesterol. So just by the fact that it says cholesterol free, it's a little misleading because it never had cholesterol to begin with, right? So going forward, I want you to remember and be conscious that the only sources of cholesterol in your diet is only coming from animal sources, so namely meats like red meats, white meats, and shellfish, even egg yolks and cheese. So that means that you cannot absorb cholesterol from rice, you cannot absorb cholesterol from pita bread or any kinds of breads, as long as they don't have any other animal source added in them. And another thing you might not have known about cholesterol is that cholesterol in foods do not, and I'm repeating this again, do not raise blood cholesterol levels. Now this might be something new for you. You may not have heard about this before and doesn't make any sense maybe to you at this point. But the thing is that cholesterol directly from foods will not raise your blood cholesterol levels. So you know the fact that people say that eggs or egg yolks has a lot of cholesterol in them and you should avoid them and all of that, it's actually not really based on truth. The fact is that our body has a very strict and tight balance, and because our body, like I said, animal sources and humans, we make cholesterol, we have our own cholesterol. So if we are short of cholesterol, our body is able to make it. So if we have too much cholesterol, our body first of all makes less of it, and it doesn't make sense for our body to absorb any more cholesterol from foods. So generally what happens when you already have a lot of cholesterol in your body and your body is trying to maintain a balance, it is going to reject the cholesterol that's coming from foods. It just doesn't need to absorb it. It's only going to absorb it if it needs it, right? So that's what's happening. So if you're eating foods that are high in cholesterol, that cholesterol is not necessarily going to always be absorbed. Also, when our food has too much cholesterol in it, our body absorbs very little of it because it only takes in how much it needs. So that's why foods that have cholesterol in them are not really bad for you, okay? Something else is, now, okay, so yes, the cholesterol from egg yolks is not harmful and does not necessarily raise our LDL or bad cholesterol levels, but we still, just as a caution, just because there's high cholesterol in egg yolks, people who do have high cholesterol, we recommend that they have about 4 servings or less a week of egg yolks, just to stay on the safe side. But it does not mean that just because you're going to eat eggs or high cholesterol foods, you will increase your LDL levels, okay? So the actual culprit is not cholesterol, it's actually trans fats and saturated fats. So foods that are high in trans fats or saturated fats will raise your blood cholesterol levels. So it's not the cholesterol in foods, it's actually the trans fats and saturated fats in foods, and these are a little different. So trans fats, you may already know this, trans fats is being banned by the government and by health industry because it has a direct impact on blood cholesterol levels and direct impact on heart disease and heart attacks. So trans fats is getting banned from food industry, so you want to have zero trans fats. Now, saturated fats is naturally found in some foods, and you want to try to limit that if you are trying to prevent raising blood cholesterol levels. So the third thing I want you to remember is if you want to reduce your saturated fat intake, which raises your blood cholesterol levels, you want to avoid fats that are solid at room temperature. Okay, so that means foods like butter, margarine, even coconut oil and ghee, clarified butter, even pure desi ghee, cheese, the fat layer in your meats, and the skin on your chickens. These are all fats that are solidified when they're at room temperature. So the chemical formula of saturated fat actually makes it solid at room temperature. So any fat that is solid at room temperature will have some saturated fat in it. Now, if you think about milk does have saturated fat in it, but it's not solid at room temperature. It's thick at room temperature, where it's not solid like cheese. So anything that's solid at room temperature is what will raise your blood cholesterol levels and increase the plaque and built up in your blood vessels that eventually lead to heart disease. So try to avoid things that are solid at room temperature. Replace all your butters, your margarines, your ghees with liquid vegetable oils. We will talk about ghee or coconut oil in a future episode, but just so you know, if you are worried about your heart health and you are aiming to reduce your cholesterol levels in your blood, then I would recommend that you shift all solid fats into liquid fats, ideally vegetable fats, and still limit that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a quick example of an Amul pure ghee. I got this from Amazon India, but I want you to look at the nutrition facts table and look at the trans fats and the saturated fat. So recommended trans fat should be 0 grams or 0%. And saturated fat, if you look at the daily value on the right hand side, and you are trying to aim for less than 5% of saturated fat in a single serving. And this is a 1 tablespoon serving of ghee, and this has 45% of saturated fat, and your goal is to only have 5% of saturated fat at a serving. So this means that this is high in saturated fat, and that means you need to avoid it if you are aiming to reduce your blood cholesterol levels and also preventing buildup of cholesterol in your body and your blood.